by their counsel, Mr. Walgan and Ms. Brazil. All 12 jurors and the 5 alternates are present. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hopefully you had an okay trip coming in, ladies and gentlemen. We appreciate, once again, your being prompt. And I'm sorry that we're a little bit delayed. We were just taking care of some legal business, and we're ready to go. So thank you again for your patience. This time, the people may have the witness retake the stand, Mr. Anderson, who's on cross. Mr. Anderson, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Sir, do you acknowledge you are still under oath and still sworn to tell the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Resumption of cross, Mr. Flanagan, good morning.
Good morning, Your Honor. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I needed some exhibits. Numbers 156 through 159. Those are them? We were leaving off.
If you could do me a favor, let's wait till Mr. Gorgian comes up for air.
Okay.
On the side here, it may be a little bit distracting because he's checking through some materials at the side of the jury box. So let's just wait. Thank you.
In leaving last night, we were just talking about the analysis of the IV bag that was on the stand.
Correct.
That was analyzed for all chemicals, and the only thing that was in it was saline solution. Is that correct?
No, what I said was that it was analyzed and no drugs were detected in it.
Okay. So the only thing found was just pure saline solution, or was it empty?
We don't analyze for salt solution, so I can't tell you if there was salt solution in there.
Okay. Was there liquid in it?
Yes, I believe so.
You also analyzed the tubing that was attached to that bag,
That's correct.
and that had no drugs in it whatsoever.
Yes.
Objection date is the tubing. It was all attached to the
I've
bag.
got
somehow.
Just a moment, please. I'll sustain the objection. The last answer is strictly disregarded. You may rephrase, Mr. Flanagan.
I've got item number 157 here. It's the tubing that I believe was previously identified as attached to the saline bag.
Objection misstates the testimony.
Sustained.
Well, 156, that's the bag that was hanging in the bedroom. Is that correct?
I don't know. I didn't go to the scene.
It's the saline solution bag.
That's how it was presented to me, yes.
Your Honor, it's previously been identified as hanging in the bedroom.
Let me ask you the next question.
Okay.
Thank you.
And 157 was the tubing that was part of that bag. Is that correct?
Objection misstates the testimony. It was identified as hanging from the IV stand, not attached to the saline bag.
Sustained.
Okay. We have a picture of that? The IV stand?
You want us?
We get a picture of the IV stand? We have to start over on that.
I mean, you can reference it as tubing and go from there based upon the evidentiary record. That's up to you.
This witness in his records reference it as medical evidence number 2. That might make it more efficient.
We're having difficulty here. I've got a picture of it.
Again, Your Honor, this witness was not at the scene. He references it medical evidence number 2.
I think that would be the preferable way, or some general description of what it appears to be, but you can proceed.
Medical evidence number 2 included tubing, an IV bag, syringe, a Y line attached that the syringe was attached to. Is that correct?
Correct, as well as a short piece of tubing connected to the Y connector.
Okay, now, I'm pointing to the saline bag here. Is that the part of medical evidence number 2 that you analyzed?
That is a saline bag, and I analyzed the saline bag. Whether it's one and the same, I don't know. It was presented to me as a piece of evidence, as evidence number 2.
Did you have a number for that piece of evidence?
It was given medical evidence number 2 as the number.
Did you have you, so you wouldn't be able to identify it by seeing it, huh?
I don't know. I haven't seen it in years.
Medical evidence number 2 consisted of the entire group of items that's attached to that IV bag, doesn't it?
Objection. This states a testimony that they're attached to the IV bag.
Sustained.
Well, they're attached in this picture, aren't they?
Objection. Misstates the characterization of the picture. This witness is not qualified. He did not go to the crime scene. It's already been testified to by Alyssa Fleek.
All right, we don't have to have editorial comments. The objection is sustained.
Approach, Your Honor.
No, you can deal with the evidence as this witness knows it to be, and then deal with it in another context through another witness. So I'm sustaining the objection.
With respect to medical evidence number 2, there was 4 components of an IV system tested, correct?
That's correct.
Is that the only IV system that you tested in
Yes.
this investigation?
Yes.
The IV bag from medical evidence number 2, was it found to contain any drugs whatsoever?
No.
Do you know whether or not the IV tubing that has previously been identified and referred to in medical evidence number 2, do you know whether or not it was attached to that IV bag?
When the laboratory received medical evidence number 2, the entire apparatus, the IV bag was disconnected from the long tubing or the spike. They were not connected whatsoever.
Do you know who had taken them apart?
Objection. Assumes facts, not in evidence.
So when it was presented, when medical evidence number 2 was presented to you, it was not in this condition, as you see in this picture.
Objection. Vague.
Overruled. You may answer.
Does it mean attached to an IV stand or?
Overruled. Do you understand the question?
I do.
Go ahead.
I mean, again, you're assuming that that's the same IV bag that I received in the laboratory. I mean, no, the spike was not inside the bag when I received a similar or that system.
Did you receive it?
The
Medical
laboratory.
evidence number 2. Were
Yes.
you there when it came into the laboratory?
No,
Then you don't know what condition it was received in, do you?
I do because of the many notes that we take during our laboratory analysis.
And whose notes are those?
They're criminalist Lintamut.
So Lentamut received it.
She's received the medical evidence number 2 from our evidence control section.
Okay, and does it indicate that it was separated?
It does.
Does it indicate where the items were found in the house?
It would not because we didn't go to the house.
Is there any doubt in your mind that the medical evidence number 2 came from the house?
Objection, relevance beyond the
Sustained.
scope.
I would call for speculation.
Did you analyze any other saline solution bags other than People's Exhibit number 156, which you referred to in medical evidence number 2?
No.
Now, you analyzed 2 syringes total,
2 syringe barrels, yes.
and each of them had propofol and lidocaine.
Correct.
Did you ever analyze any apparatus that had only propofol?
Any apparatus?
Yes.
No, not just propofol.
The only apparatus that you analyzed containing propofol, which would be the Y tubing, the 2 syringes, contained lidocaine also.
Correct.
And the Y tubing and the syringe in medical evidence 2 each had flumazenil.
Yes.
Were the proportions of lidocaine and propofol the same in the Y tubing and the syringe in medical evidence 2?
Proportionality or quantitation was not performed.
Okay. And that is correct of the syringe of medical evidence number 1, too, isn't it?
That's correct.
Yesterday we were talking about some equilibrium, and I forgot to have you define the term equilibrium when as it relates to body fluids. Could you define that?
What I was understanding from your questioning, equilibrium meaning when the samples or the concentrations of the drug are equal in all compartments.
Which is number the... Is it 162? Are these in order? I can have a moment, John. I need
Please.
to find an exhibit.
Sure.
long does it take the blood system to come into equilibrium?
Objection. Beyond his area of expertise.
Do you understand the question?
Oh, I understand the question.
Are you able to respond?
No, it is beyond my level
Beyond
of
your
expertise.
expertise?
Yes, sir.
The objection's overruled. The answer remains.
But you would expect equilibrium to be achieved in the blood system within a fairly short period of time?
Objection. Same objection.
I think he just indicated that's beyond his expertise.
Okay.
Sustained.
We did not define therapeutic range yesterday. What is therapeutic range?
Therapeutic range of a drug is a concentration of the drug that achieves the desired effect. It's given to you for a particular reason, and is it causing that desired effect and at that concentration? Generally, therapeutic range is obviously a safety concern. Some drugs are very safe. Some drugs at all concentrations. Some drugs are not so safe at all concentrations.
What source do you use to determine therapeutic range?
The review of the literature, the many clinical trials that goes on before a drug is actually FDA approved. They run numerous medical trials to determine what concentrations are in the bloodstream, what effects the drug is having on you.
Have you made a determination as to the therapeutic range for propofol?
The literature has a lot of information about propofol and the ranges that it provides. There is no real...
I think the question could be answered yes or no. Have you done it?
I've looked at a lot of literature, yes.
And have you made a determination as to the therapeutic range for propofol?
You can't make one.
Does the amount of propofol relate in a person's bloodstream relate to the degree of sedation?
Objection. Beyond his area of expertise.
Is it?
It's starting to get beyond my level. I mean, an anesthesiologist would be better.
Okay, so you really can't answer the question as to therapeutic range for propofol.
In relationship to behavior, no.
Okay, what about the therapeutic range for lorazepam?
In evaluation of decedent population and what I commonly see, I can comment on that.
You can or can't?
Can.
Yeah, what is the therapeutic range for lorazepam?
It typically ranges from, on average, about, 100 to 200 on average, nanograms per milliliter, excuse me.
So that'd be a point, if we use it, micrograms per milliliter, as you've indicated on, you've used micrograms per milliliter on exhibit number 169, is that correct?
Correct.
Right there we show lorazepam at 0.162
Correct.
micrograms. What is the therapeutic range?
Well, let me correct what I said earlier. I mean, therapeutic range can range anywhere from, it can range from 0 really, or a little bit above 0, all the way up to a particular level. Typically, the literature suggests, on average it can be 180 area or 0.18. It can range up to easily 0.2, 0.3 area. But after that, it starts to become a little dangerous in regards to decedent population interpretation.
I was asking what the range is. Like, is it from point, as the terms that you use up here, would it be like a 0.04 to a 0.24?
I'm not going to give you specific ranges. I can't give you an exact number because everybody tolerates drugs a little differently.
Okay. A prescription for lorazepam usually involves one pill, 2 milligram pill, doesn't it?
Again, it's prescribed in several different milligram sized pills, and it really depends on the patient that it's being prescribed to.
Can I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'm going to show you People's Exhibit number 107, which is a lorazepam bottle. That is a prescription for Michael Jackson. What does it indicate that the prescribed amount is?
It is a prescription for Michael Jackson. It is labeled lorazepam, 2 milligrams. Take 1 tablet by mouth at bedtime as needed for insomnia.
And that 1 tablet by mouth, what type of blood level would that achieve?
A single 2 milligram tablet?
Yes.
I don't know.
You indicated yesterday that the 0.16 level that he's got here would indicate approximately 11 milligrams?
According to the calculations, the quick calculations that I made, yes.
So that would be maybe 5.5 of these pills? Or were your calculations related to IV?
No, the calculations were based on, or regardless of route of administration. It was a totality of drug that would have made that blood value.
Well, if you use IV, if you go IV, you get a higher percentage of the drug in the system, don't you?
Objection vague as in the system beyond his area of expertise.
Sustain.
Do you not know what I mean?
I'm listening to the sustain.
Okay.
So
Just re-ask the question in its entirety, please.
What is the bioavailability of lorazepam?
that I don't know.
You know what the term bioavailability means?
Yes, I do.
What does it mean?
How available the drug is to your system depending on the route of administration.
Okay. So bioavailability of injection, IV injection, would be 100%, wouldn't it?
Correct, it can be.
And oral's got lower bioavailability, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
And you don't know what that percentage factor is for lorazepam.
No, I do not.
So it would take more pills to get to the same level than it would take in terms of milligrams. It would take more milligrams by way of pill to get to the same level as IV. Is that correct?
I would agree with that.
And so in order to get to the 11 milligrams by oral use of pills, do you have any idea how many pills that would take?
I've lost you on your question.
To get to the point, to get 11 milligrams in Michael Jackson's body, how many pills would he have? You say the level he had indicate that he had 11 milligrams of lorazepam in him, correct?
It's an approximate number, yes.
Okay. Now, if he were getting it IV, 11 milligrams IV would achieve that number. Isn't that correct?
The number is based on, in the blood, as a totality. It doesn't, regardless of route of administration, IV, milligram amounts, it can represent several days' worth of an accumulation. I can't testify at all, or I don't feel very comfortable testifying at all, in regards to how he achieved this level in the blood based on your dosing schemes.
So you'd have to take into consideration time of dosing.
You're going to have to take a lot into consideration.
What else other than time of dose and amount of dose would you have to take into consideration?
Well, again, as I said yesterday, assumptions being made. You're starting to get very deep into pharmacology, which I don't have a thorough background in, and I would rather leave it for the many experts that's going to march up here after me to talk about pharmacology.
So you're not qualified to answer that question?
I prefer not to, no.
Okay. Are you comfortable with discussing ion trapping?
Other than explaining what I typically see in my coroner's casework, to that degree, I have a sense of it, I know about it, and I have experienced it.
Do you have a sense of it with respect to lidocaine?
Yes, I do.
Because you've read Dr. Schaefer's report, is that correct?
Oh, it goes beyond that.
Okay. What do you know about ion trapping with respect to lorazepam?
Other than lorazepam's a basic drug, and it would behave very similar to all the other basic drugs, such as propofol and other drugs that I'm familiar with.
Wouldn't it have a little bit of difference from propofol and lidocaine in that lorazepam is not subject to redistribution?
Objection beyond his area of expertise.
If you understand and are able to answer, fine. If not, tell us.
It's starting to go beyond.
Okay, so you wouldn't know anything about lorazepam and postmortem redistribution.
I'm not prepared today to talk about lorazepam and postmortem redistribution.
Okay, but you would agree that a drug that is not subject to postmortem redistribution is not going to be subject to ion trapping in the stomach.
That's not true at all.
If a drug was subject to ion trapping in the stomach and not subject to postmortem redistribution, you couldn't take it orally, could you?
Objection beyond his area of expertise, calls for speculation.
Are you able to answer?
Those two terms, postmortem redistribution and ion trapping, have nothing to do with each other.
Well, for ion trapping in the stomach, you have to have a way of getting the drug in the stomach, don't you?
You have to have it available.
And postmortem redistribution is one way of making it available. Is that correct?
Postmortem redistribution is the movement of drug from high to low. So again, you're stretching it a little bit.
Okay. And unless it's postmortem redistribution, it requires oral ingestion to get it in the stomach, doesn't it?
Objection calls for speculation beyond his area of expertise.
Are you able to respond?
I don't understand the question.
I'll sustain vague and ambiguous.
In order to get lorazepam in the stomach, do you know of another way other than postmortem redistribution or oral ingestion?
The only way that you can get it in the stomach is through oral administration or ion trapping. It's not postmortem redistribution.
So you will agree that it does not come into the stomach by way of postmortem redistribution.
That's correct.
Now, ion trapping, how does that occur without the drug getting in the stomach?
Could we define the term first?
Ion trapping?
Yes.
Can you define that term?
I don't necessarily know if I can define it that well. I have a general sense of an acidic environment ionizing a basic drug and the drug being trapped in the acidic environment. And then beyond that would be beyond my level of expertise.
In order for ion trapping to occur, the drug has got to get into the stomach, doesn't it?
Yes.
How does it get into the stomach other than by oral ingestion?
By diffusion from the surrounding specimens.
You're talking about redistribution.
No, I'm not.
What is the difference between diffusion and redistribution?
Specifically talking about the gastric sample, I'm talking about diffusion from the surrounding specimens.
What is the surrounding specimen you're talking about?
Well, if my anatomy class reminds me a little bit, the liver's close by. The blood samples are close by, the blood itself.
Now, if it comes in to the stomach from the blood supply, that is redistribution, isn't it?
It's being redistributed from high to low.
And we've already agreed that lorazepam is not subject to redistribution, is it?
I didn't agree to that at all.
Well, you read the writing by Basalt yesterday. Is that correct?
I'll ask and answer the objection.
Overruled.
Do you disagree with what Basalt said?
Basalt,
The objection is sustained. It's been asked and answered.
Are you familiar with a book entitled Medical Toxicology by Dart?
I am not, no.
Okay. So, in essence, what you are saying is that lorazepam can come into the stomach through redistribution. Are you saying that?
Saying it can get into the stomach via ion trapping.
Ion trapping is what holds it in the stomach, isn't it? It's not what gets it into the stomach.
Again, I understand the gist of this. I have a general knowledge of it. But when you start talking specifics, you're starting to get out of my area of expertise. And I would prefer to stay out of this.
Okay. So you really cannot explain anything other than oral ingestion as a means of getting lorazepam into the stomach.
Objection misstates the testimony. This is all beyond his area of expertise.
Overruled. You may answer it.
I can testify that I have personal experience that drug levels can be detected in the stomach of many different types of decedents from many different types of drugs, and they were not given orally.
And those are drugs that are subject to postmortem redistribution, isn't it?
Again, they're basic drugs that we commonly find in gastric analysis. That does not necessarily mean they were orally administered. How they got there, I would rather leave that for the pharmacologist to testify to.
Do you have experience with a decedent having lorazepam in the stomach that was not orally ingested?
I do not have personal experience with that particular drug, lorazepam.
That's all I'm talking about. Lorazepam.
I do not have personal experience with lorazepam.
But you do have personal experience of other drugs being in the stomach that weren't orally ingested,
That were not orally ingested, yes, I do.
such as lidocaine.
Such as lidocaine, such as fentanyl.
Okay. The other drugs that you measured, this ephedrine, that is not at ephedrine being just present in the urine would not be at a therapeutic level, would it?
You cannot relate urine values to blood values.
Okay. The diazepam up there, that's not at a therapeutic level either, is it?
The diazepam is very therapeutic.
It's therapeutic, but it's not at a therapeutic quantity in the bloodstream here, is it?
Therapeutic, I don't know.
The bedazzling in the heart blood, 0.0046. That's not a therapeutic level either, is it?
I don't know the therapeutic range for midazolam, so I
Okay.
can't answer your question.
So I'm beyond your expertise again.
Yes.
Now, you came to a quick judgment that propofol was the most important drug in this case, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
Because you analyzed everything for propofol.
That's correct.
The razepam. Did you ever come to the recollection or the realization that that was an important drug in this case?
Objection relevant, Your Honor. The test speaks for itself.
The objection sustained.
Did you think that lorazepam was not significant in this matter?
Objection relevant.
Overruled.
I think it has its importance, but it's not the red flag that caught my eye.
Why not?
Objection withdrawn.
You may answer.
Thank you. The propofol in any case that we handle is important, probably more important than many of the other drugs that we deal with.
But when you saw those lorazepam levels in the heart blood and the femoral blood, those are very high levels, aren't they?
Actually, that's not what my testimony states. I said they're within therapeutic range.
Well, the propofol's within therapeutic range also, isn't it?
That's not what I said either. I said it's within a therapeutic range in a proper setting. This is not a proper setting.
What does the setting have to do with therapeutic range of a drug?
It's very important.
Think it makes a difference whether I take an aspirin at home or at work?
Objection relevance is aspirin.
Sustained.
Therapeutic range is basically defined as the effect that the drug, in terms of the effect that the drug might have on the body, isn't it?
Correct. Desired effect.
Okay. Well, it doesn't take into consideration, and the literature, when they discuss therapeutic range, does not take into consideration where the drug is administered, does it?
The literature suggests that it has to be an appropriate setting.
What drug are you talking about?
I'm talking about any drug. I can name off several drugs for you.
Can you show me one piece of literature that discusses therapeutic range that conditions that range upon where it is administered?
I can't tell you today. I mean, I'm sure I can find the literature if you give me a little bit of time.
The lorazepam, you didn't do the calculations that you talked about today with regard to the 11 milligrams until this last weekend?
Actually, it's 2 weekends ago. I misspoke, but that's true.
Why did you do them then?
Objection relevance, Your Honor.
Overruled.
Because I was presented the information about the analysis that the defense did for lorazepam in the gastric sample.
Okay. Were you also presented with the analysis that the defense did with lorazepam in the urine samples?
Yes, I was. The 2 urine samples.
Okay. Did you do any calculations, special calculations for purposes of determining what that meant?
As stated before, the urine values don't mean anything. It's a historical perspective. It's an accumulation of drug in that reservoir.
Then why did you analyze the urine for propofol and for lidocaine?
Now, when we do a lot of our analysis, we're trying to do as thorough of a job as we can with the information that we have today. We try to answer all the questions that we think are going to be there. We can't anticipate all the questions all the way through. We thought we would do every specimen just to try to answer anybody's potential question.
Well, why did you analyze the urine for midazolam?
Remembering that most of the analysis is performed by many different analysts, each of the analysts will tackle the cases a little bit differently, trying to achieve the same goal. And this particular case, a criminalist Bud happened to do both the bloods, knowing that there are going to be small amounts of midazolam in those bloods. He wanted to substantiate the finding with a urine value, knowing that the urines are typically much more elevated as it's more concentrated.
So why did you do the urine for midazolam?
Because the values in the bloodstream are extremely low, and we know that the urine values are always much higher, typically. It's in order to substantiate the identification of the drug in the system.
How do the urine values usually relate to the lorazepam?
I expect them to be much more elevated.
And they were in the samples that in the results of the analysis that you've seen done?
That the sample split for the defense had done, yes, I did.
Has your lab confirmed or the analysis done by my lab?
No, there's no reason to, because that's what I expected to begin with.
Okay. And the lorazepam levels in the urine are much higher than the midazolam levels, aren't they?
One more time, which two drugs are we comparing and what specimen?
Lorazepam to midazolam in the urine.
Oh, yeah, yes, very much so. The lorazepam is much more elevated.
Lorazepam levels would be 13 or 13 point something on the seen urine and 15 point something on the autopsy urine?
Well, I exactly haven't seen a document presented to me. I haven't seen it at all.
Oh, you haven't?
Well, I've got it in my book somewhere, but I haven't seen you present it in court specifically. So, I mean, unless you want me to find it for you.
Why don't you find it?
Okay. I have located it.
Okay. And the urine seen numbers, what are those?
The report from PAC Tox, PAC-TOX, lists lorazepam in the urine as 12,974 nanograms per milliliter.
So that would be 19, or that would be 12,900, rounding it up 13,000 approximately. That would be 13 point something in the seen urine, correct?
Correct. In making the conversion, it would be 13 micrograms per milliliter in comparison to the midazolam at 0.025.
So it's a lot more lorazepam, isn't it?
In the urine, yes.
And on the autopsy urine, the lorazepam would be 15 point something?
The exact number was 15,181 nanograms per milliliter, or 15 micrograms per milliliter.
So with respect to the urine at the scene, the lorazepam level goes up in the urine sample at autopsy, correct?
The autopsy urine concentration is greater than the seen concentration.
And with respect to the midazolam, the autopsy urine concentration is much less, isn't it?
Much less than those 2 urine samples of lorazepam. Yes.
No. The urine sample midazolam at autopsy is much less than the urine sample midazolam at the scene.
It's 3 times less, 4 times less at max.
It's 1/4 as much.
Okay, to me that's not that significant, but okay, it's less.
Well, in the jug that was sitting on the chair, it's 4 times as much as it was at a time of autopsy.
Fine, yes.
Whereas lorazepam, in the jug that's on the chair, it actually goes up at time of autopsy.
Objection Vegas to go up.
Overruled.
It's greater than.
And you would not be willing to draw a conclusion from that lorazepam was taken subsequent to the time that it was accumulated at the scene in the jug.
That's correct. I'm not making any inferences from a urine value.
Okay. The half-life on midazolam is, do you know that?
I do not know.
Okay, but lorazepam, you looked up the half-life, and that's 9 to 16 hours.
That's correct.
Would you be familiar with the fact that midazolam has a shorter half-life?
I would agree with you because it's a short-acting type drug.
When a person consumes lorazepam orally, do you have any knowledge as to the time that it takes to get to the peak level?
No, I don't.
Isn't that... Where did you learn that the half-life is 9 to 16 hours?
I looked it up in the Dr. Basalt's book.
In Dr. Basalt's book? Doesn't Dr. Basalt's book indicate the time to reach peak level also?
Objection relevance. You didn't look it up.
Sustained.
You didn't read that in Dr.
Objection
Basalt's
asked
book.
and answered.
Sustained.
Your Honor, I didn't hear the answer.
That's the point. It was asked and answered, and the court sustained.
The objection is sustained.
So you don't? Is it your answer is that you don't know whether Dr. Basalt's book discusses absorption time?
Objection relevance. What as to form of the question?
The objection is sustained. As to what particular drug or medication?
Okay. Is it your position that Dr. Basalt's book does not discuss absorption time for lorazepam?
Oh.
This states the testimony.
Did you read it in the book?
It's in the book. I don't remember what the book says.
Overruled.
Does it discuss time to reach peak blood level?
Objection relevance as to what the book discusses.
The objection is sustained. It's the witness's opinion that is at issue.
Okay. As a result of reading Dr. Basalt's book, have you formed an opinion as to the length of time it takes to reach peak blood level from oral ingestion of lorazepam?
No.
Nothing further at this time, Your Honor.
Mr. Flanagan, thank you. Redirect examination. Mr. Walgren.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You're welcome.
Morning, Mr. Anderson.
Good morning.
Sir, I just want to clarify one issue, and I think you've indicated on cross-examination by Mr. Flanagan, you never went to 100 North Carrollwood, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So when you received the items in question, you received vials of blood that were given to you that you learned were obtained from UCLA.
Yes, received directly from Investigator Fleek.
You also received what was booked by the coroner's office as medical evidence number 1, which is actually now People's 118 and People's 120, which were two different components, a syringe with plunger and an IV catheter or needle, correct?
Yes, medical evidence came in as two different pieces within one container, yes.
Okay. And it was referenced in the initial booking process, these two components were referenced as a broken syringe, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. But you have no knowledge as to the condition they were recovered at the scene or have any knowledge whatsoever other than your toxicology analysis of the fluids contained in People's 118, the syringe.
That's correct.
Okay. And the IV bag and the IV tubing that was collected on June 29th, 2009, again, that was just simply brought to you at the lab and it was labeled collectively as part of medical evidence number 2, correct?
Yes.
Can you explain, Mr. Anderson, the difference strictly from a toxicology point of view when you're determining the numbers that you've referenced? Can you please explain the difference between a blood sample and urine sample as to the value it has in your analysis?
Sure. Typically, we're analyzing the blood samples for drugs. Drugs in the blood generally represent what's happening in your system, what's actually can affect your system as a whole. The urine, as explained earlier, is just a simple reservoir of collecting everything that your body is metabolizing out. It's just collecting everything that you possibly have taken 5 minutes ago all the way out to days ago. Hence why we saw ephedrine in the urine but nothing in the blood. The value for us interpreting-wise is we expect the urine to be a lot more concentrated. That's the expectation. If you find it in the blood, you expect to see a lot more of it in the urine, drug-wise, concentration-wise. And usually when we find trace amounts of things in the bloodstream, we'll look to the urine or an excretion product to substantiate what we think we're finding in the bloodstream. It just helps us in our interpretation later down the road.
And again, then, as you indicated, so the urine is more historical in nature. It's what has been expelled from the body possibly over a period of time.
That's correct.
I received a defense exhibit relating to the harassment. Mr. Anderson, I want to ask you a couple of questions about this is Defense Exhibit GG. A report from PAC Talks indicating Defense Counsel Flanagan, gastric contents. Now, well, it actually indicates gastric contents, but it indicates then urine here, so it's unclear from the report. Counsel has represented this as a gastric contents result, although it indicates urine. For the sake of my questioning, let's just assume it is gastric contents, as then it's indicated here. So assuming that this test which apparently was done on date received June 16th, 2011. Okay, date drawn June 26, 2010. Date reported 8/29/2011. Let's assume that this is 634 nanograms per milliliter in the gastric contents for lorazepam. You've had a chance to review that?
Yes, I have.
And did you work through some calculations to break that number down as to an actual, to break that number down into a meaning as it relates to tablets?
I have.
I have a 2-page document titled Lorazepam in Stomach. May this be marked 172 for identification?
Yes.
Placing a P172 on both pages. So again, I'm taking the number from the defense test, Mr. Anderson, the 634 nanogram per milliliter in the gastric contents for lorazepam. Taking that 634 nanograms per milliliter, which is reflected here, the lorazepam concentration, 634 nanograms per milliliter. This gastric volume, what number is that?
That's the amount that I measured or weighed out of the stomach contents from autopsy.
And then in determining the actual gastric amount as reflected on this page, can you walk us through these calculations and explain how you arrived at this amount in stomach calculation?
Sure. Because this laboratory measured in concentration, they measured 634 nanograms for every milliliter of fluid that they had. Totality-wise, at autopsy, I was provided 73.5 mils of gastric contents. So the 634 nanograms for every mil, but I have 73 mils of it. It's a simple multiplication of 634 times the amount in the stomach of 73.5 mils gives me a 46,599 nanograms of lorazepam that remain in the stomach. And then making the conversions, the nanograms to micrograms is 1,000th off. So you divide by 1,000, so it's 46.55 or 599 micrograms. Still trying to make that make sense for you guys. You know, we're talking milligrams. Everything's given in milligram amounts. Milligram tablets, milligram IV pushes, things of that nature. Divide that again by another 1,000, and you get 0.046 milligrams of lorazepam that remains in the stomach.
And you actually broke it down more precisely to 0.046599 milligrams of lorazepam in the stomach. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Now, Mr. Flanagan had presented you with People's 107, which you had indicated is a lorazepam prescription pill bottle, and the pills being 2 milligrams each. Is that right?
That's correct.
So with a 2 milligram pill, assuming each lorazepam tablet is 2 milligrams, you've calculated that the amount in the stomach, 0.046599 milligrams, is equal only to 1/43rd of a single 2 milligram tablet. Is that accurate?
That's accurate, yes.
Is it an exceptionally trivial amount?
It's a very small amount, yes.
Thank you. Nothing further, Your Honor.
May we have the lights, please? Recross, Mr. Flanagan.
You indicated that the levels in the blood explain what is happening currently with respect to the drug effect.
Yes.
The levels in the urine are more historical, though, aren't they?
Yes.
And like in your example where you've got the ephedrine present in the urine, not in the blood, you can learn from that ephedrine was taken quite some time in the future or in the past, and it's been metabolized out of the blood, correct?
Correct.
Because the urine, everything that goes into the bladder comes out of the blood, doesn't it?
Yes.
Blood circulates through the kidneys. The kidneys take out certain waste materials, whether it's water, drugs, or whatever, and everything in the bladder comes through the kidneys.
Okay.
And the kidneys only get it out of the blood.
Again, you're starting to get beyond my level of expertise.
So when you got ephedrine present in the bladder, you know that at some point in time there was ephedrine in the blood, don't you?
Correct.
Now, the bladder or the urine has historical significance in that in the event that you were, say, have a high concentration of ephedrine in the blood and a very low concentration in the bladder, you would know that the ephedrine was recently taken, wouldn't you?
Be a fair assumption, yes.
And it's the same thing with propofol, isn't it?
I think I earlier stated that I am not familiar with the excretion patterns of propofol, and I don't know how well it distributes into the urine specifically.
Are you familiar with the excretion patterns of ephedrine?
I have a better sense of that drug than I do propofol.
So propofol, you just don't have the expertise to correlate its excretion into the urine with respect to how much was in the blood?
That's true, yes.
And you wouldn't be able to give us a timing estimate either?
No, I would not.
Would you with lorazepam?
I'm objecting beyond his area of expertise, as is previously indicated, Your Honor.
Is it beyond your expertise?
It is. It's certainly, you guys are touching on beyond my expertise.
Sustained.
By looking at the urine results and comparing it with the blood results, though, you can predict whether the substance was taken at a point in time close enough that the body hasn't had a chance to come into equilibrium, can't you?
Objection based speculation beyond his area of expertise.
Beyond the scope. Sustained.
Okay. So, but if there's nothing in the blood, there's some in the urine, it means it's taken a long time ago. But if it's high in the blood and nothing in the urine, it means it's taken very recently, the drug, doesn't it?
In a general scheme, yes, but again, you have to have knowledge that it does excrete into the urine. There are some drugs that just don't excrete into the urine.
But you don't know whether propofol does or not.
That's correct.
Okay. When you did the gross calculation of milligrams of lorazepam contained in the stomach, is this something Mr. Walgren asked you to do?
Sustained.
In the event that a person were to take, say, 7 or 8 tablets of lorazepam, and it was and you were to analyze the stomach contents, and you found say you found 14 to 16 milligrams of lorazepam in the stomach, you'd know that it was just taken, wouldn't you?
Yes, if I'm analyzing the stomach for lorazepam in that scenario, it would be a lot of lorazepam in the stomach, and the interpretation would be very recently ingested, possible abuse of the drug.
Okay. And in the event that you were looking at the stomach contents, and by virtue of a blood sample, you were able to determine that a person had to have 7 or 8 lorazepam pills, and you found the stomach contents very low, you would know that the lorazepam was taken some time ago, wouldn't you?
Objection, misstates the testimony.
I'll overrule it. You may explain.
Well, I'm having difficulty following you on this question, so...
Okay. When a person takes a pill,
Objections beyond the scope of his expertise, Your Honor.
Let's have the whole question asked, please.
when the person takes the pill, and there's not much left in the stomach. And this assuming you know the person's taken a pill, but there's not much left in the stomach. You'd know that the person's had time to absorb the pill that he took, wouldn't you?
Objection, speculation beyond his area of expertise.
Sustained.
Speculation or expertise?
Both. And 352.
Okay, would you have the do you have the expertise to determine to venture an opinion that if there's only a small quantity of a drug left in the stomach, but you've got a large quantity of it in the blood, that it's been taken quite some time ago?
Objection, vague, relevance, 352.
Would it depend upon a drug in any case?
Well, it would depend on the drug and how well it gets absorbed. It would depend on, a scenario of that the person didn't vomit and, get the drug out of their system through the vomit. It's a lot of speculation because everything has to be based on a scenario and the case scenario specifically. It's very difficult to talk hypothetically.
Overruled.
Okay, so you'd want to know if a person vomited. If you could determine from a blood level that a person had to have so much of a drug that's taken orally, you can do that with various drugs, can't you?
Objection, vague, speculation, relevance.
Sustained.
Okay, we've got 0.04 milligrams lorazepam in the stomach. If the individual that contains that amount of lorazepam in the stomach had taken lorazepam, you cannot tell how much they took based upon that figure, can you?
Objection, vague, beyond the scope, improper hypothetical, beyond his level of expertise.
Overruled, if you're able to answer.
I agree. I personally would rather leave this to a pharmacologist who would be coming.
Well, when you're talking about gross quantities in the stomach, that gross quantity is going to change over the absorption phase, isn't it?
Objection, beyond his area of expertise.
I'm sustaining the objection. 352 as well.
Do you know anything about the absorption time for a lorazepam pill?
Objection, 352, previous ruling.
Overruled. You may answer.
I think I've already said that I looked at Dr. Basalt's book. Sure, it's in there. Don't remember what it says, and I wouldn't want to testify to it.
I've got the Basalt article on lorazepam.
Objection to relevance. He hasn't
Could
considered
I
it
approach,
informing his
refresh
opinion.
his recollection?
Just a moment, please. I don't believe so. First, you've got to get to the issue of whether he has an opinion on what he may have relied. So I'm sustaining the objection.
You did consult Basalt on the Razpam, didn't you?
Objection to relevance.
Sustained.
Did you use the Basalt article in forming your opinion on the Razpam?
Objection assumes facts not in evidence. He's indicated he did not form an opinion on that
The
question.
objection is sustained.
You got the half-life information from Basalt?
Objection asked and answered.
Overruled.
Yes, I did.
Did you read the entire the entire 2 pages of Basalt's article on the Razpam?
At some point of time, I have, yes.
And it would be your opinion that you have forgotten what he said about absorption?
Objection argumentative. Misstates the testimony. He's indicated he did not rely on it.
The objection is sustained.
Would you rely upon it if you remembered it?
Objection relevance.
All right. Sustained. We're going to have to move to another subject, Mr. Flanagan. Thank you. 352.
I have no further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Flanagan. Mr. Walgren, redirect?
No, thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. May Mr. Anderson step down subject to recall? Mr. Walgren.
Please, Your Honor.
Mr. Flanagan? Yes. Thank you. Mr. Anderson, I want to thank you for your testimony. Do not discuss your testimony or the facts of the case with any other witnesses until we finish the trial. And while you may step down and leave, you are to remain on call, and that means you're subject to recall up until the end of the trial. Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
You're welcome. The people may call their next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. People recall Alyssa Fleet to the stand, Your Honor.
Thank you.